Okay, so next we have James, who is going to be presenting on carbon sequestration and economic impacts of 3 forest management scenarios in Simcoe County forest plantations over the next 20 years. And he's supervised by Rasoul, and his external supervisor is Graeme Davis from County of Simcoe.
Hi everyone, I'm James. Today my topic is using the 3PG model to assess the carbon sequestration value and the economic returns in Simcoe County forest. My internal supervisor is Rasoul Yousef, and my external supervisor is Graeme Davis. Here is the context. There are 5 parts in my presentation. At first is the introduction. I will briefly introduce where the Simcoe County Forest and what's the principle of 3PG and my 3 scenarios and my objectives. And in the method, I will introduce how did I establish the models and also the 3 scenarios calculation. And in the results section, I will show the both model result and as well as the scenario results. And in the discussion part, I will give 3 evaluations of different management scenarios, and then it's the conclusion part. With the intensification of climate change, the global warming situation is becoming worse, and the carbon dioxide level has increased a lot. So the Canadian federal government has committed to achieve the net zero carbon emission by 2050. And after that, various policies were implemented, like the Environment and Climate Change Canada Offset Credit System and Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act, and so on. And various industries are struggling to reduce their carbon emissions by using some clean energies and carbon capture techniques and so on. But forestry also plays an important role in reducing the carbon dioxide level. And forest carbon sequestration certification refers to access and certificate the ability of a forest area to store and absorb carbon dioxide through a sustainable forest management. But there are not so many examples of carbon trading in Canada carbon market. So the carbon market in Canada is still in an early stage. Here is a map shows the Simcoe County forest location, and it is one of the largest county-level public forests in Canada. And currently, the traditional forest industry in Canada is seeking some forest value beyond the timber, such as the carbon sink value. This can not only increase the economic returns, but also protect our environment. And several years ago, Simcoe County Forest has had some idea about develop a carbon project, but due to the choice of methodologies and the instability of the carbon sink market, a reasonable framework has not been developed. I will mainly focus on 4 tree species in Simcoe County Forest. They are red pine, sugar maple, white pine, and red oak. The 3PG model, the full name of 3PG is Seismological Principle Predicting Growth Model. And here the flow chart shows the working principle of 3PG. Here it comes from the thermal radiation, and after some seismological and environmental factors like leaf area index and soil water, it will be transferred to the gross primary production. And after some correction factors, the GPP will be transferred to the net primary production. And then there are some allocation factors and limitation factors. Finally, the 3PG output will be shown as stem biomass, root biomass, and foliage biomass, and so on. As for the reason why I choose to use 3PG, I think currently it is a more accurate model because it combines the climate change data. It is more accurate to use 3PG to predict the future forest value other than the normal air table. And currently there are no parameters of those 4 tree species in 3PG dataset. So I plan to develop those parameters and build 4 species model. And also, I can use some equations to transfer the 3 biomass to the carbon credits value and to do some analysis in Simcoe County Forest. So my objective at first, I will develop 4 species model, and then I will explore the carbon sequestration value and economic returns in Simcoe County Forest. So I built 3 scenarios. At first is business as usual. I will first select 12 typical stands for each species, which can be representative of the overall forest area in Simcoe County Forest. And then I will keep the original management plan in next 20 years. The second scenario is maximizing economic benefits. I will create new management plans for different sites. And then it's the introductory of carbon certification. I will make sugar maple get certified, which means don't cut in next 20 years and earn carbon credits through that. Here's the method section. There are 4 steps in my analysis. As first is data collection, and then is model calibration and validation. And then there are some 2 calculations involving the economic benefit and carbon sequestration. The first data collection, at first I collect some meteorological data from the Toronto Meteorological Station. And then Simcoe County Forest also offered us some plot level data and stand level data. The third is soil types classification, because currently there are no soil maps involving geospace information. So I just download a normal soil map from the Canadian government website and use georeferencing tool, combine it together with the plot data. And then I classify those plot data by different soil textures. And we also collect some data from the published papers. The second step is model calibration and validation. At first, I just collect more than 80 parameters data from the existing papers, and then I did the more sensitivity analysis, which means I can choose the top 30 influential data, top 30 influential parameters from the to the result. And then I did the Bayes calibration involving Monte Carlo method Markov chain. Actually, this step is kind of complex, and if anyone who are interested in this step, and I can explain it in the question section. And then it's validation. The third step is calculate economic benefits. I also create a flow chart to show the relationship between the 3 PG output and the 3 scenarios. At first, we can see the business as usual. We don't have to change the management method, but for the other 2 scenarios, we have to change the management method. So I use the GA genetic algorithm, and I build an optimal MPV function involving the thinning number and thinning age. And after I get the thinning number and thinning age, I re-input it into 3 PG again and run to get the remaining biomass data. The third one is carbon certification. Actually, we plan to postpone the harvest of sugar maple in next 20 years. So to earn the carbon credits, and we compare this scenario to scenario 1 to see how many carbon credits we can get. And we consider the program cost from the VCS program fee list, and we also consider the carbon credit buffer. It means that we cannot get all the carbon credits from our forest. We have to consider the buffer pool deduction, risk deduction, and conservative rules. And we also create a tree planting project to increase the success rate of carbon sequestration project approvals. Here is the result. Those 4 figures show the evaluation from the default model to the final model. I will show the red pump model. This orange line is the default model, and the black dots are the observation value, and the green line is the final model. We can see the prediction of the final model is more accurate than the default model. I also created a bubble chart to show the 3 scenarios result. The x-axis means the remaining biomass, and the y-axis means the cutting biomass, and the bubble size means the income level. Obviously, we can see the second scenario, maximized timber volume has the highest income level, but it need to cut more and remain less. And for those 2 scenarios, scenario 1 and scenario 3, we can see scenario 3 has the most environmental value and a little bit more economic value than the scenario 1. And in addition, this scenario 3 can store 770 tons of carbon dioxide, 1,000 tons of more carbon dioxide than the scenario 1. In the discussion part, actually, the first business as usual, it is a balanced approach with moderate economic returns and no negative carbon impacts. But for the maximizing income scenario, it only focuses on the logging. It will deplete the future timber value for our next generations, and it will also diminish the forest carbon sink. For some improvement, if we want to harvest more, we should consider to promote the natural regenerations and also maybe equally distribute the logging area and volume over time. Let's focus on the third scenario, introductory of carbon certification. It can open up a new revenue stream for Simcoe County Forests, which is the carbon credits revenue. And it can reduce the fiscal dependence and as well as the logging cost. And in addition, the remaining sugar maple in next 20 years can increase the long-term benefits of the environment. And because it is the highest carbon sequestration value scenarios, it will enhance the forest contribution to the climate change mitigation. For the future considerations, I think it is better to create the to combine the 3PG result models with the remote sensing image. And also it is important to analyze the carbon credits market trend and the price fluctuations. Conclusion, this study demonstrates the potential of using 3PG model to access the forest growth, carbon sequestration, and economic value in Simcoe County Forest. And by delaying the harvest of the sugar maple and introducing some additional red pine plantations, the third management scenario can not only increase the carbon storage, but also ensure the compliance with carbon certification requirements. And despite the uncertainty of changes in the future carbon market, the durable benefits of economic returns and environmental management makes the carbon certification a viable long-term strategy for sustainable forest management. And I want to appreciate my professor, Rasoul Yousefpour, who gives me some valuable instructions, and also Mr. Graeme Davis and William Cox. They provide me a lot of valuable Simcoe Forest data, and also my classmates Norman, who give me some ideas and helps dealing with 3PG model.
Hey, thank you. So do we have Graeme on the line with us for a question?
Yes, you do. Hi there.
Hi, go ahead.
Welcome. Hello, everybody, and thank you, James. Great presentation there. I certainly thought, and also just wanted to note that I know, James, when we first met in Rasoul and had some discussions, this project did evolve over time, and I just think, James, you did a very nice job of kind of pivoting from some earlier assumptions around certification and focusing on the carbon, and have come up with quite an interesting project here, and gives us something to think about moving forward. My primary question for you, and I have some broader thoughts and questions about the carbon market, but first of all, maybe just back to if you can explain a little bit more to me why the sugar maple came out, why our tolerant hardwood stands came out as a little bit different, with your suggestion that if we pause harvesting on those, we may be able to look at a separate carbon project for those particular stands.
Yeah, actually, for the sugar maple stand to get mature, it usually takes about 100 years or even longer. But for the red pine plantations, white pine plantation, it may take shorter. But in order to delay, in order to postpone the sugar maple harvest, it is that if we want to postpone the red pine or white pine plantations, it maybe takes and if we cut the sugar maple, it may take more than 100 years for the sugar maple plantation recovery. But if we want to protect this and keep it in the next 20 years, we don't have this kind of problems. And also the carbon density of sugar maple is kind of higher than those pine species, I think. Yeah, those are two aspects for my answer.
Okay. Maybe just the follow-up question to that then, James, with with your assessment there that it takes a long time for sugar maple forest to recover, is that considering, there's a lot of implications in the way that we harvest, and generally speaking, we're looking at selective harvesting and stand improvement operations. Removing about a third of basal area, but typically lower health, lower quality, and improving over time. Do you still see with that sort of a regime, do you still see that kind of benefit in carbon, I guess, longer term, or is that based on a little bit of a heavier an assumption about a heavier harvesting prescription?
Oh, yeah. Really, we can imagine that a certain level of a certain tree stand, it has some certain level of carbon sequestration value. And for the sugar maple, it takes more than 100 years for this tree to grow like this height. But for the other red pine or white pine species or red oak, even it maybe takes like 50 years for them to grow like that level of carbon sequestration value. So if we cut the sugar maple, we will lose the carbon value in 100 years, and 100 years later maybe they can recover. So it is a better choice to postpone the harvest of sugar maple other than the other tree species.
Okay, thanks, James. I think
Okay.
that's it for me for now. I know I maybe suggest Will Cox from our team was quite involved in this as well. Can I pass it along to Will to see if you have any questions? I believe Will's on. No, Will's good to go. Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Mr. Davis, as well. Like, we appreciate Simcoe for its contribution to this study that was, as you said, initiated by us, and then you were a great help, and we are happy to collect the data and try to help Simcoe Forest to develop strategies. In line with the Graeme's question, my question is that the scenarios that you have built, James, is not a prescribed silvicultural systems. You have used a kind of optimization to find out how you can best store carbon or do timber harvesting or other scenarios, business as usual. And these are depending on many factors, on the prices, on the cost, and the duration. You had 20 years time interval to optimize for. So when you're explaining what is good or bad to do, I do not think that it is so much based on the ecological process understanding and explanation. It is rather the result of the optimization and set up with the objective function and constraints and the parameters and values that you have used. So by explaining that, sometimes because the system is nonlinear, it is very difficult to interpret that why it is happening. So please, when you communicate your result, be specific that this is a kind of an optimization result, and that optimization tool is very kind of flexible. It means that if you talk with the Simcoe Forest Administration more and they have other constraints and concerns, you can easily formulate that and see in a different scenario what will be the optimal solution for that. But for sure, what you are approaching here is a good basis for the carbon certification. Because right now, for the certification of the carbon in Canada, you can have a secondary alternative approach, and optimization is one of the tools to prove that you have additional carbon storage in the forest valuable to be credited, right? And that was the reason you have used that table with a lot of different fees. So I want you to explain a little bit more details for the carbon certification, how you have formulated your optimization, that it becomes clear for the audience how you do that.
Okay, actually for the third scenario, carbon certification, I use the same management method than the business as usual, except I delayed the harvest of sugar maple in next 20 years. And I remember the management method of the business as usual is cut the red pine plantations every 9 years and cut sugar maple every 15 years, and red oak is also every 15 years. And the questions uh, about uh, about the management method of the third scenario, I think. Sorry, could you please refer your questions again?
So what I was asking was that what did your optimization in general, how you formulated, what was the purpose of your optimization, that the result was like postponing, increasing the thinning or the periods for the management of these stands?
Okay, in Canada, especially the northern forestry, there are a lot of northern forest plantations in Canada. It is very hard to use some fertilizers or some other ways to improve the growing biomass of this kind of plantations. But if we can, but the most important part in the carbon project is the additionality. It means that we need to use some method or some efforts. After we put some efforts into this project, the carbon sequestration level will be increased. So the original method, the original management plan is the default business as usual scenario. If we choose to delay the logging of the next 20 years, we can cause the carbon sequestration increase in the next 20 years. So that's the reason why I choose this method.
Thank you very much. That is credible what you have explained, but you could do also much more than that, right? So these are the decision variables that you diverge from the business as usual, and you prove that by doing that, you can store more carbon in the forest. There are also other approaches that you can also model it and building within your model and see what is the carbon benefit of that.
Yeah. I have considered this problem before because recently to apply for a real carbon project, it needs some certain methodologies. And if this methodology is not approved by some standards like gold standards or VCS standards, we have to develop the new methodologies, which means we should cost more. So it will increase the program cost and some other things. So that's the reason why I choose to delay the harvest. Not then, yeah.
Okay, another question. One sec.
Yeah, first of all, the optimization part of things is very impressive. To do the Bayesian parameterization and MCMC work is very impressive. So that's a nice piece of work. I guess backing up, thinking about how you came to use 3PG. I don't buy the general argument that a physiological model is necessary or really desirable, because oftentimes those models are very complex and they make assumptions that if you really probe are not tenable. And so I think that general argument that you're saying, well, we should not use these kind of normal yield table projection models, even though those, are generally recognized to do a better job for predicting, say, merchantable timber yield, which was why they're initially put together. But there are also a whole set of we've seen sortie ND used. There is already developed a 3PGS model that is a satellite-informed version of 3PG. So there are at least half a dozen other kind of major physiological process models that would be possible, including ones that were specifically developed for Canada. There is the NRCan Canadian carbon model as well, which would be kind of the prescribed model. So how did you decide to use 3PG?
It's because I think the calibration process of 3PG model is very reasonable, I think, because I can explain the calibration process. There are usually in the Bayes calibration, there are three main steps of Bayes calibration. At first, it's the Fourier distribution, and then it's likelihood function, and then it's posterior distribution. And which means that in the Fourier distribution, we will put some limitation factors into the parameters into that, and then the likelihood function will have some lot of parameters. They will change those parameters to make the preservation value to meet the standard of observation value. And after many times of iteration, and this kind of the prediction value will be almost as same as the observation value. So I think it is very precise steps for the 3PG calibration. And also this base calibration involves MCMC, Monte Carlo method Markov chain. And usually this method is, the MCMC is working on the last two steps of the calibration. And at first, maybe the Monte Carlo method will randomly generate some numbers based on the Fourier distribution limitations, and they can the Monte Carlo method will generate some candidate numbers, and then the Markov chain will choose to accept this number or reject this number. And after I remember in my work is about 18 million times iteration for the Markov chain, and it will simulate the posterior distribution of 3PG. And after that, the Monte Carlo method working again to select some number from the simples, and we can get the posterior distribution.
You're describing the parameterization process, but you could in theory use that Bayesian process for any of other models. That's not restricted to 3PG. It may be easier to do for 3PG. I have the feeling that you utilized tools that were available that were specific to 3PG, but you could do that kind of Bayesian parameterization for, a wide variety of models.
Yeah,
it's still an impressive thing to
you.
do, but that's not a very good argument for 3PG.
Oh yeah. I can.
James was about to say something. Can we let?
Because I think it contains some different parts of the 3PG model. There are one part is the soil fertilities, and I just classified different plantations with different soil textures like loam and sandy loam and clay and mountain rock. There are 4 categories, and I think it is based on different site and with different parameters. I think it's very reasonable to do that.
James, this is discussion between me and Sean.
Okay.
So Sean, like the Polonsky's normal yield tables is developed maybe late in 1970 based on the data before that, and it's not climate sensitive. So maybe the hidden assumption is that the climate is stable and not changing. So I'm not climate change skeptical. I believe climate change is happening. So using this hybrid process-based models is one of the ways to take into account the effect of climate change. In Ontario, there is really no other effort to develop that kind of climate-sensitive empirical models. There is ongoing efforts that I am also myself involved with Matthew Fortin and also Ashik Wasim, but the result is not yet there. So maybe the beauty of the 3PG is that at least it is climate sensitive. But I agree with Sean that the precision or uncertainty of this kind of models is a bit high. Usually if you have 30 or 60 parameters that you need to fix, even with Bayesian calibration, to have the results and the interactions are nonlinear, it is very difficult to really calibrate in a way that it is robust. But experience shows that, as Sean also said, 3PG is also applied in BC a lot, and there is Canadian version. I would not call it Canadian version, it is British Columbia version. So hopefully we can develop here Ontario version and apply for that. So back to you, Sean. Do you believe not climate sensitive empirical yield tables could do better?
Okay, and with that, thank you, James. That was wonderful.